Hey everyone, we got the near ban on Thursday, and today it's time to start the double review. Well, I say double review, but it's going to be separate reviews. As you've seen on my spreadsheet, there will be individual reviews for A2 and 2B. Today we're starting off with A2. She's a little bit easier to review. I do have a few things that I want to check with 2B before I make that review. So it's time to check out our latest SLB unit. Is she as amazing as is 2B, or does she suffer from the average global premium inconsistencies that already plagued units such as Wilk? We shall find out today, so let's get right into it. So like I mentioned, A2 is a premium super limit burst unit. She functions as either an LB chain finisher or berserk morale chainer, but technically speaking, she can use Hateful Blade, which is her main nuke, in Dark Visions as well. It deals more damage than the LB/SLB. Now, she does have a 150% amp. This is notwithstanding the highest amplification of all the global units that we've had so far. And the Yorha type A number 2 A2 Neo Vision ability is single use, and the amplification buff, the 150% light amp, only lasts 2 turns, which is pretty much in line what JP units have on their Granduses/Magnuses. I honestly still don't know the difference between them, but so be it. The added bonus of being a global unit is that it also fills morale by 400, and it does increase Hateful Blade's modifier by 125. However, as you can see on the bottom right already, Hateful Blade has 2 parts of it. The first part being 700x, the other part being 1300x, meaning any modifier increase to said ability increases it twice as much, meaning that 125x ability modifier by Yorha type A number 2 Grandis, it actually is a 250 total modifier increase for Hateful Blade. We'll see something very similar to this on 2B tomorrow. And the other one, Gentle Traitor, is, I don't know, I feel like this ability should not be a single use ability. It's 100% restore HP MP, it's 99% mitigation for 1 turn, cures attack break or cures stat breaks, and provides permanent stat break immunity. I get the feeling why, or I get the point of it being just single use because it has the last part being infinite turns, but this could have been a 5 or 10 turn cooldown and would not have hurt anyone. But anyway, I digress because I still wanted to talk about her light amp Grandis. Now, if this were a JP unit, or if this was a JP unit, I'd be fine. JP units, they tend to be hard locked into their elements regardless, so when they have 2 turns of big amp that is meant for 1 single burst in Dark Visions, I'm fine with that. I've come to peace with it, and I can accept this. I cannot accept this on global units, because global units with our global environment, most of all Chamber of the Vengeance and Clash of Wills, we do not have that luxury of just going one and done burst. As we've seen on this current boss, we are supposed to burst twice, if not thrice. And with such a Grandis, this is not happening. You can at best, and this is also at minimum, burst highly once per fight. What's more is, and this is becoming quite apparent with Hateful Blade's cooldown, is that it is a 4-turn cooldown available on turn 4. Which also means if your A2 is not at EX plus 3, you will certainly miss out on the 5-turn meta that we are in. Now, will that 5-turn meta still prevail in a few weeks/months? maybe, maybe not, but certain units such as Premium Cloud Strife that we're about to get, as well as Yuffie, if I'm not totally mistaken, they have the Tidus's STMR passive built into their kits, meaning 100x modifier increase to their LBs is baked into their kit, and these units, they will be very beneficial to Dark Visions, etc. Not so much in Clash of Wilds unless they get morale abilities, but for Dark Visions, especially A2 is kind of a tough sell, especially at lower EX levels. If you have A2 at EX plus 1, she's useless anyway, but EX plus 2 still makes her not usable, because the ideal scenario is you have to SLB on turn 4 in that case at EX plus 2. On turn 5 you have to use her Yorha type 2 Grandis, or Yorha type A number 2 Grandis for the 150% amp and the modifier increase, and then on turn 6 you would use Hateful Blade. And this is why EX plus 2 A2 is straight up unusable. It is very unfortunate they made a premium unit this bad. It also kind of harms her longevity in terms of or overall damage per turn, because her only real damage is coming from Hateful Blade. So it's not premium standard. Wilk has higher damage per turn, technically had higher burst in terms of percentage gain over the previous highest unit. So I feel like she's just tagging along next to the real deal DPS that is 2B in this case. And the other abilities that she has, offensive field combo, that's just basically your morale filler, which I do personally like. This is some fluff that I do appreciate, which JP units usually didn't have, but now they are starting to have again, so this is very much so in line with JP units. And Finisher, which is just an off-type damaging ability when your Hateful Blade is on cooldown. It doesn't deal as much damage, but it functions as an 85% break, which is defense break, which is fine for Clash, but isn't for Dark Visions. And what's more important, 30% Greatsword Imperil permanently and spammable. Whereas units such as, say, Esther has it on her Grandis, which needs to be refilled via her LB. She has it permanently. I appreciate that a lot. Sadly, A2 does not use Greatswords, because Greatswords aren't that meta. Now, the other two abilities, and that's pretty much all the kit that she has, are Dash Attack and Inorganic Blade. Now, Dash Attack, and I find that highly questionable again, for a premium unit in particular. Now, this the Dash Blade, it removes all prior imbues and imbues her with Wind. It is also a 120 Wind Imperil. Again, premium unit, 120 Imperil, even for an off type, that's not cutting it these days. And it also is only a 45% amp. I'm just gonna say it, this should have been a 60% amp. No questions asked. This has to be a 60% amp if we're supposed to pay this much for a unit. Now, the Inorganic Blade, on the other hand, same deal, light stuff. That's where the 60% light amp is at. It is also a 140% light imperil, which is very, very good. In that case, I wish they did the same for Dash Attack. I don't see any reason to nerf her secondary element that much. It should not be the case. I don't understand why they did this. It's just JP reminiscent kit inconsistencies. And yeah, the other things that are very, very notable here are that at EX plus 2, she not only gains a lot of static attack, yada yada yada, but also Beautiful World is her 200 chain ramp, which I do appreciate a lot. Now, I would have also appreciated a lot if she had natural 6x cap. It might be somewhat of an issue to give her 6x cap. You have to use Indestructible Light or reforge your Clash pieces for chain cap, which is unfortunate. You're losing out on DPS, technically speaking, and good units, Chizuru, Tsukiko, those are coming to mind. They had 6x cap right off the gate at EX plus 3, and I wish they did the same for A2. And Spoiler, 2B as well, but they didn't. What I do like though is Piercing Master, which is her TMR Super Trust Master and Vision Card bonus. And I highlighted it. You do not need to wear the TMR or STMR. Obviously the TMR, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes, it is very, very good for Neo units, but I really appreciate it, and that's going to be a topic for tomorrow's review on 2B, is that the Vision Card activates the Trust passive. I love it. Now in case of A2, you really have to use the TMR anyway, and if you do, you get 100% Omni Killer, and the rest of it, yeah, it's nice to have 250 static attack, 100% attack. It's nice, but what's really is the kicker here is the 100% Omni Killer, and I'm kind of still, even though this is fine, I wish it was 200%, because every premium unit, JP units in particular, have 200% Omni Killers. And neither A2 nor 2B have that luxury. And I hate this. I hate it so much. Now, granted, with the TMR equipped, you are at 150 Omni Killer. Still, it's less than what a JP unit has, bare minimum. And I feel like global units, while they should be better than JP units because we only get 1 max 2 per month, they are not. And those are cases where I feel like our global devs still playing the game, and we'll get to that in a minute when we talk about the LB and SLB, because that's where I'll have to keep myself from ranting for half an hour. What's also notable is the second or the third type of passive that she unlocks is Resonant Force, A2 Neo Vision, which requires 2B to be alive, and it doesn't state here, but we all know that this is a fact. She needs to be at EX plus 2. And this one allows or enables a passive that is active throughout the entire fight as long as 2B is alive, to increase Hateful Blade by 1x baseline. So for Dark Visions, this is pretty much nothing. But for morale fights, she gains 130x modifier on top, meaning in total 131. Now considering that Hateful Blade strikes twice, this is a 262x modifier increase, which is pretty good. And whenever you use A2 in Clash of Wills or any morale scaling fight, you're pretty much forced to bring 2B along too, which isn't a bad thing because 2B is really strong. Oh, by the way, what I forgot to mention, Hateful Blade is EN Chains, Extreme Nova. Perfect choice. I like it that they gave this ability EN frames. It lines up perfectly with units such as Chizuru, Lilith, 2B, Esther, etc. So very, very well done in that regard. And lastly, I also added the Attacker Type 2 A2 Neo Vision, just for more ranting opportunities, because it's only 300% true double hand attack. It's an SLB unit. Gumi, for Christ's sake, give her 400 true double hand. Don't make gearing SLB units such a pain. I know we all love JP units for the stupidity that they are, with the inconsistencies, with the hoops we have to jump through to make them work. But please don't do this to global units. Give SLB units instant true double hand magic and attack cap through passives. Don't make us wear stupid materials to max it out. Just make them somewhat slot efficient. They are only half the unit of a Brave Shift unit, so make them worth somehow. And one way is to have them have maxed out true double hand magic / attack. Thank you. Please, especially for premium units. Now the LB and SLB, and this is where things get really ugly. Now the LB, 250x modifier physical to all enemies. Before that happens, 250 attack boost, which is totally irrelevant. 250 attack boost is ridiculously low. Also adds red glow, which is just for fluff and lore. And now, as you notice, the wiki doesn't state frames. for good reason. Because if it would read Extreme Nova version 2. And what that means is both the LB and the SLB, they are technically Extreme Nova. But if you're familiar with the absurdity that is Balthier or Titus LB, you will know what kind of atrocity A2 is. Not only is she a delayed Extreme Nova, no, she also has super janky frames in between, which make chaining this with any real Extreme Nova chainer a nightmare. I've tried chaining the super limit burst of A2 and 2B together. I gave up 10 minutes after it. It's just dumb. It's just straight up a dumpster fire. Neither of this, I will never use any of these abilities for damaging. Well, let's also just point out that the SLB isn't high damage at all. It is 400% attack boost, nice. It adds 100x to all her damaging abilities, which is a 200x increase for Hateful Blade, cool stuff. But it's also only 300x modifier LB. Now, obviously, this does not state morale scaling, meaning if you wanted to, you could technically use Titus's STMR and boost this up to 400. Now, adding Sylvie's LB amp on top, this is 420, blaze it. X modifier, is that good? No, it's certainly not. We already have units such as Van Harmer, Fabled Guardian Jacked with way more than 500x modifiers in the Dark Visions department. So that 420 Blazed X modifier, it's just not worth it. Meaning you are technically pigeonholed into using Hateful Blade, which isn't a bad thing. The modifier on this is still pretty high for Dark Visions too. So it's fine, but yeah, what really grinds my gear is that the frames are bad. And this is one of those cases, when I realized how bad this is, I immediately had a pitch meeting with Hiroki and the unit designer in mind, where the unit itself, everything looks fine, TMR is great, STMR is amazing, vision card is good, and then Hiroki asks, but what's the catch? And how are we possible, or how is it possible, or is it even possible to ruin a unit that is technically speaking not that bad? And the unit designer saying, actually it's gonna super easy, barely an inconvenience, like while having a huge smile on his face, and Hiroki asking, oh really? And then the unit designer just saying, yeah, we'll just make the LB and SLB janky Suda frames ask EN frames. And and Hiroki saying, amazing, and let's go with it, and we're done. That's how you ruin an otherwise decent unit. Congrats, Gumi devs, you ruined A2 golf clap. Let's move on before I rant too much about this. So like I mentioned already a few times, the TMR and STMR are great. The TMR 500 static attack, the material is exclusive to near units, mind you. 500 static attack, 70% attack, and 50% Omnic Killer. Superb TMR, but I feel like this is a JP-esque Final Fantasy series type TMR, where they also have 500 static attack and 50 Omnic Killer. So it's nothing special, but for near units, it actually works out fine. And I probably shouldn't criticize JP series units anymore for this when I do it for near units. So the Super Trust Master, on the other hand, is really good. It's a materia, everybody can use it, 100% true double hand attack, 100% attack, and 100% beast and machina killer, physical and magical. This is Irvine's STMR on steroids. It's amazing. It's really good. I personally have 5 copies of this. I wish I could have 6. Alas, I don't. And if I pull one A2 from my daily 10 pulls, I would certainly get a 6th copy of this. It's that good, and I love it. A little downside, I wish it wasn't Machina and Beast, because both killer types are oversaturated. I wish this was maybe Fairy, or Aquatic, or I don't know, Dragon, spirit or insect, I don't know, or insect aquatic, something rare and not beast machina, which are already way too oversaturated on 100% killers. The vision card is another thing that I'm really disappointed about. It has no animation, it's just that splash screen, the main artwork of Nier Automata. It has no music of Nier Automata playing, and technically speaking, while it has 150 attack and it is a great vision card, it's just only Nier units that can use it, and it doesn't feel premium. 150 attack is great, 100 attack percent is great, 50% human machina killer is great, 100% HP and 50 LB damage is nice, and the 500 static attack, it's all fine for Nier units, but I feel like, especially in the case of A2, I will end up using Tidus's vision card more often than I will end up using this one, maybe. I'm not quite sure, but the upside of having 1x chain cap increase on Tidus's vision card kind of justifies not using A2's/2B's shared premium card. I'll have to see, I'll have to math it out. This is one of the things I came up with when making this video just now, but yeah, the vision card reads great, it might seem great, but I feel like longevity wise, it'll be mostly a human machina killer type card where you will otherwise use Tidus's card instead, even though you are losing the 500 static attack. Well, you're not really losing it out, but you're losing some damage, but you can make up for it by using the static attack ring, for example, or static attack clothes. So all in all, superb TMR, amazing Super Trustmaster, and still very, very strong vision card, but it's Nier only. The item selection on A2 is stellar though, so no complaints from my side. Now let's check out the damage calculation stuff. As always, if you want to read this through, pause the video. I will just skip ahead to the build. So this is the build A2 is running. She's using the Dark Vision's 405 attack katana. She is at level 130, meaning her damage will be a little bit more inflated compared to the other Dark Vision units, which are still calculated at 120. But as you can tell, A2 has two fixed materia slots, which is one inherit will, which is a TMR, and the STMR. She has to use both, and if you don't use the STMR because you don't need the killers, you still need to use a 100% or higher true double hand attack materia. Most of the times you cannot substitute this with equipment pieces because they are super low on attack, so you end up being forced to use a materia slot anyway, and that's bad news Friday, because it leaves you with only 2 materia slot for killers, and being at 100% killers, 150% with the TMR equipped, it's bad news Friday. But with Dark Vision slightly being single race, it probably will work out. But as soon as they start being double race again, A2 is going to run into huge gearing issues. And all in all, I feel like the choices of TMR and STMR, they heavily limit her options for killers. Like it's stated here, it's especially dramatic when you fight against aquatic insect. It still works out in this case, as you can tell, but that's because I'm using, or the builder suggested Palladian presidential medal, which is Omnikiller as well. So that's not the best option to use, obviously, and using such a bad item just to fill killers, yeah. And this is not considering that you need any shape or form of resistances, passive evasion, etc. And if you need that, yeah, you're gonna sacrifice a lot of DPS. And that's why I mentioned having 300% true double hand attack is just a bad case, or bad in general, bad unit design for SLB units. So yeah, by the way, axe and hammer builds are viable too. It's just that rolling variants on axes and hammers is, I don't know, that's masochistic. If you do that, don't do that. And otherwise, yeah, That's pretty much it about the build. So let's check out the damage result. Let's first look at Dark Visions, where she is at the top. No surprise here, she has that 400% Berserk on Hateful Blade, which helps boost up her total attack. 2450 LB modifier is pretty good too, divided by 7. That's equivalent to a 350x, I believe. Yeah, 350x LB, but the huge attack on her, she's about 18,000 attack, makes up for that, and yeah, it shows. She's highest DPS right now. We will have to find out whether she's a spreadsheet hero, just like Van Harma is. Van Harma never saw use, even though he has a super high LB modifier and lots of attack, but he never saw use. And the same fate may come to visit A2 as well, but yeah, also please note that both A2 and 2B have massively inflated numbers because of their 150% amps. This is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout the next few weeks when every single unit going forward has 150% amps. So it'll be interesting to see how A2 and 2B will fare in the next coming weeks, especially when Premium, Cloud Strife and Jaffe arrive. I'm very curious to see how these units, A2 and 2B meaning, fare compared to those two. But from napkin math, they should be about equal. So yeah, outside of her light focused burst, she should be about on par with Van Harma, Onion Knight, Swolebess and the like. So yeah, still a pretty decent unit, all things considered. The damage is totally fine, and it's just the inconsistencies in kit that really grind my gears. For Clash of Wills, things change a little bit. Here 2B, because her LB scales better with morale than A2's Hateful Blade scales with morale. 2B takes the lead. A2 is still very good though for this clash. And she is a 25.29% increase over Chizuru. But this, keep in mind, is still inflated by that 150% amp. If you take that 150% amp away, because the boss isn't weak to light at all, both 2B and A2 are far more comparable to Chizuru, Olive, and Sky in particular too. Once I update Sky with the latest stuff, she will skyrocket too, pun intended. So they are right about on par with each other depending on the type of monster. If everybody fights this off race in Clash of Wills, they are very similar to each other, with Sky still being the best, which I find highly ironic. But partially so because Sky has the highest LB modifier in the game. And it can go even higher, up to 1000x if you go all the way, but nobody's gonna do that. So yeah. And this translates into a solid 7 out of 10. Now, I originally wanted to give her a 6 out of 10. And the one point where I added, or she got another point for high damage in both Clash and DV. Because if you look at my rating explanation on my damage spreadsheet, whenever a unit deals 10% more damage than the previous highest damage dealer, units gain an additional bonus. And this applies to A2 as it does apply to 2B. So even though 2B does less damage than A2 on my spreadsheet, both releasing at the same time, both dealing 10% or more damage than the previous rank one, both will gain that bonus. But the slide itself, it's kind of already cramped up, so I had to include this somewhere else. So I included this in the high damage in both Clash and DV part. So usually this is a 1+1, but because she gains another bonus for a high damage, it's +2, or being the new highest damage unit. Alright, so the other good things, like I mentioned, the super strong TMR and STMR, very good vision card, and I do particularly like the 140 light imperil and 30% GS imperil. Those are good. Doesn't replace Kuja, probably not, especially when it comes to dark visions. The higher the imperil, the better. So Kuja will still have some place in the meta with his 160 light imperil, but we're getting there slowly but surely. 140 light imperil on a true DPS unit is still very, very nice. I appreciate that. Now, on the other hand, the bad side of things is really, really bad. So bad that I deducted a full point for the Suda-esque EN-LB, SLB. Also, the kit issues are really bad. 100% Omni-Killer passive. That's not a premium unit feature. That's just standard unit features these days. And only effectively has 2 open materia slots to use. She has 0 party support, which I find highly disappointing, and she is, like I mentioned and explained earlier, straight up unusable at EX+2 in a turn 5 meta. Now, if you're not chasing high ranks in Dark Visions, and if you don't really care that much, and nobody should care that much about damage in Clash of Wills, because getting to that 2.5 billion cap is pretty easy these days. So you might, if you don't care about this meta thing with 5 turns, you can delete mentally that point and she'd be an 8 out of 10. I would totally get that. But for me and the type of content I play in and the type of content that I want people to participate in, because it's the most fun, I believe, and for whom these videos are, small reminder, my videos are for people who want to rank in top 100. And in that case, yeah, if you have A2 at EX+2, she is straight up unusable in your 5-turn meta Dark Vision stuff. And that's why, all in all, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 means, and let me remind you of this, that a unit is technically speaking already pretty good and will have plenty of use cases, but not so much that she is used every single time. A unit such as Sylvie is being used pretty much all the time with very, very few exceptions, and that's why she's a 10 out of 10. Broad usage ways, but A2 lacks that broadness of usage, because whenever light is not the primary element, or wind for that matter, which is a secondary element, there is merit to not use A2. So always keep that in mind, and this pretty much, I'm very certain that the 7 out of 10 resembles her worth the best. She is a decent unit, with all things considered, obviously, but she won't see that much play, is what I feel like. And I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't on the next Dark Vision high rank team. She will certainly be on the next Clash of Wills team. I wouldn't be surprised, at least, unless they force us to use mages again, because it's an evoker again, which would be kind of bad news. I don't know, speculating, of course. But yeah, I feel like she's, for now, in a decent place. She's not the best, but also definitely far from being the worst. So 7 out of 10 feels like a decent unit. The first, I'm gonna say this, and I'm being serious here. If she didn't have such bad SLB and LB frames, she'd be the first SLB unit which I would sort of kind of say, yeah, it's alright, it's still not perfect, far from it even, but she'd be a passable SLB unit. But with these stupid Suda-esque EN-LB and SLB frames, I just hate using her. It's so bad. But alas, for now, the only 2 or 6 good SLB units that I would say are Awakened Anya Knight, Swolbass, Neo Vision Awakened Tidus, Neo Vision Awakened Squall, Runda, and who's the 6th? I forgot about it. Probably A2. She's still decent. So that's about it. Thank you all for watching. That's been it for today. We'll see each other for 2B's review tomorrow. And what you see here is the SLB, by the way. So have a wonderful rest of the evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're from. And we'll see each other tomorrow for 2B's review. That's gonna be the place to be.